All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Composing for Beginners. And today we're going to be talking about music theory fundamentals. I think that as any composer, you need to learn a little bit about music theory in order to at least, have to understand how to make music, sound a bit more harmonious, and just to give you that basic foundation for which you can experiment with music and really express yourselves. I definitely think that music theory is just another tool in the toolbox, that you can pick out at any time in order to kind of assist you in creating the music that you want. And so I definitely think that this is a topic of importance and one that we are better off discussing earlier than later in this series. So I'll go over some general fundamentals, basic stuff. I'm not going to go into I'll go into a few slightly more advanced concepts, but nothing that should ideally blow your head out of the water, or nothing like too crazy. So yeah, I'll try to explain it in the way that I learned it. I know I struggled with music theory initially when I learned it, so I will try to do my best and explain it the exact same way that I learned it, and hopefully you guys can understand as well. So yeah, let's get started. So first, we need to talk about notes and notation. So these are the absolute basic. What are notes? What is notation? Okay, so notes represent various pitches in music, right? Um, so a note is basically a pitch. And for Western music, at least, we use a system called 12-tone equal temperament. Now, in classical and more chamber settings, you're not going to be using exactly 12-tone equal temperament. You're going to be using something known as pure tuning, which requires adjustment in tuning from the musicians and everything to create a much more harmonious sound. But again, that really depends on the human ear, and because the pure tuning is more used in this kind of small classical / chamber settings, you're it's going to be reliant on having a very, very good ear and a lot of training from the musicians in order to get that perfect tone. So the easiest one that we use as a nice little compromise is the 12-tone equal temperament tuning, which is found on a piano. So notes are named after letters. The letters are C, D, E, F, G, and it wraps back to A, B to finish it off. And C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C represents the white keys on a keyboard. So as you can see, I have a keyboard diagram here. So in a keyboard, you see this group of 3 white notes and a group of 2 black notes together. And there's a group of 4 white notes and 3 black notes together. So the group with 3 white notes and 2 black notes, the leftmost white note is a C. And that's where it starts, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, all the white keys. Now, in between these notes, we have what's called sharps or flats. In music terms, it's called accidentals. So what looks like the pound sign or hashtag is called a sharp, which means it is half a semitone away. It's half a semitone up from the original note. We'll talk about what a semitone is later. And what looks like it has a small letter B next to it is called a flat, which means it's half a semitone down from it. So there's C sharp, D flat, D sharp, E flat, F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, B flat. And these represent the black keys of the keyboard. Now, at least in 12-tone equal temperament, there is not going to be any E sharp, F flat, and there won't be any B sharp, C flat as well. So F flat is literally just E. E sharp is literally just F. That's just the system that we use. All right, so what is notation? Notation is just a way of visually displaying music. Typically, you'll have this printed out or in a PDF somewhere, or basically because a lot of the because a lot of the older composers they don't have access to technology, so they wrote a lot of their music on sheets of paper, and that's why it's called sheet music. So it consists of a stave, clef, key signature, time signature, notes, accidentals, and decorations. I'll go to explain on some of these I guess terms. I'm not going to explain. I've already explained notes, accidentals. we'll talk about so a clef basically represents where a note will be on the particular staff. So for example, the like a C on a treble clef will be at a different location than a C in the bass clef, for example. And it's just a way for us to, when we see the clef, we know exactly where notes will automatically be and what register the staff will naturally be in. So yeah, key signature just tells us how many beats are there in a single measure, and the top note represents how many beats are there in the measure. The bottom number tells us which kind of note gets the one beat. You don't have to know this too much. We'll explain it in a later, maybe in a more advanced music theory video. I would recommend that you, for now, start learning 4/4 time signature, which is your standard 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, that kind of thing, and you just count to 4. That's pretty standard. A lot of music uses it. You're not gonna be like labeled a beginner if you use it, or so it's perfectly fine to just use 4/4. I recommend just sticking with 4/4 first until you get a hang of the other aspects of music theory. Then you can start to be a bit more rhythmically creative and start using a little bit more interesting time signatures like 6/8, 7/8, 5/8, that kind of thing. So yeah, a piece of music in its notation form is typically also just called sheet music, again because it's traditionally written on sheets of paper. And so even to this day, like I said, musicians, when we play in an orchestra, or we're playing, or like piano players playing in a recital sometimes, or playing accompaniment, they're gonna have the sheet music as well, which is music written in sheets. Next, so those are the absolute basics. So let's talk about the building blocks of kind of harmony and melody, right? Scales and keys. So let's understand what are scales and key signatures, as this will inform you about how you create your melody and how you create your harmony. And so this is the first thing that you want to kind of think about the moment you start working on a new piece. So to understand what scales and keys are, we'll have to talk about intervals. Now, you heard earlier in the video where I started talking about where I used the term semitone. And this is where it comes into play. So what is an interval? Well, an interval is the distance from one note to the next. And I don't mean the distance physically on a sheet of paper. I just mean the difference in pitch, the distance in note from one note to the next note. So what's the distance between, let's say, from a C to an A, or from a G to a B, that kind of thing. So there are a few ways to think about it. You either use the amount of steps to reach the note, or using the appropriate interval name. So let's break it down. A step can either be a whole step or half step. So let's talk about in the form of steps first. A whole step, so a half step, is the next note on the keyboard, white and black keys included. So what does that mean? So okay, let's start from C. If you have a piano, I would highly encourage you guys to try this out yourself. It will be much easier for you guys to understand if you have a piano or an instrument, right? So let's have a C. Okay, a half tone. So a half step is the next key to its right. Now, if you're just looking at white keys, that will be a D. However, it says here in my definition that white and black keys are included. So the next key to C, both white and black keys included, will be C sharp or D flat. So hit that note. So C, C sharp. That is a half step. That is just what is known as a half step. Let's try another note. Let's start from E this time. Okay, so what's the next note to the right of the keyboard, white and black keys included? Well, there are no black keys in between E and F, so the next one has to be F, and that's a half step. Great, so now we know what a half step is. So a whole step is the same thing, but it's just 2 notes above. So let's again start from our example of C. So in a piano, like I said, so our half step is C sharp. So if we want to do a whole step, it will be the note next to the C sharp, white and black keys included. So what is the next note next to that C sharp? Well, it's going to be a D. So that is a whole step. The whole step from a C is D. Let's try another example. Let's start from E again. So we know that a half step is F. So a whole step is again a half step above our original half step, F, right? So white and black keys included, what's the next one to the right of it? Oh, yes, it's an F sharp, right? So the whole step from an E is an F sharp. So that's the way you can think about it. And yeah, so once you learn about these steps, it becomes easier to dissect music. So I can say, oh, so the interval between this note and this note is 4 whole steps, and you'll be able to quickly count it out on the keyboard. All right, there's another way that we can use this, which is called just rename the intervals. So as you can see there, semitone, tone, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, sharp fourth, flat fifth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major seventh, minor seventh, major sixth, sorry, minor seventh, major seventh, octave, flat ninth, ninth, minor 10th, major 10th. And those are just fancy name for intervals. So for example, semitone is a half step. A tone is a whole step. A minor third is a whole step plus a half step. A major third is 2 whole steps. Perfect fourth, 3 whole steps. Or 3, so 5 half steps, right? And so on and so forth. Sharp fourth, so on and so forth, right? So knowing these interval names is incredibly important, I feel, because a lot of, especially if you watch channels such as 8-Bit Music Theory, you're definitely going to be hearing a lot of these interval names. You don't have to memorize too much. I would recommend memorizing tone, semitone, what a perfect fourth is, a major third and a minor third, and a perfect fifth. That's all you're really gonna need to understand the basics of music and to write to start writing music. So that's the intervals that you want to know and you want to keep your head around. Okay, so those are intervals. Also would recommend that you guys screenshot this intervals or try to find this picture somewhere online. But I would recommend just screenshotting this image, as we're gonna be using it later on in the video as well. Not exactly the image, but I might talk about something in an interval name, and if you haven't got this memorized, which is fine, it does take a while, just have a little bit of screenshot just so that you have something for reference. All right, moving on. So what are scales? So scales is just a series of notes. Okay, well, that's not very explanatory, isn't it? So yeah, scales are basically just a group of notes that are related to each other by certain intervals. And so a scale is based off the intervals between each note. So for example, let's take the C major scale, right? So a scale, like I said, it's either going to be major or minor and has a root note at the start of it, although the root note ties more into the key. So we'll just talk about scales as major, minor, and whatever other modes there are. So let's take the major scale first, and for our example again, to make it easier, we'll do C major. Okay, so we have the C there. We have the C. Okay. So from C to D, that's a whole step, right? From D to E is another whole step. E to F is a half step, right? F to G, whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, whole step. B to C, half step. And if you have a piano, I would like for you to play it out. This is just all the white keys start from C and at the next C. So you just play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and that's a major scale. And you can construct major scales starting from any, if you follow the same pattern of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. You can start from any note and construct a major scale. I'll show you an example. Let's start from D. We'll construct the D major scale. Okay, D, whole step from D. E, all right, cool. Whole step from E, because it's whole step, half step. Whole step from E, we already talked about this. F sharp, right? So it's F sharp. Okay, whole step, so half step from F sharp, because it's whole step, half step. Half step from F sharp is G. Then we do another whole step, A. Another whole step is B. another whole step. It's not C because C is the half step, so it's C sharp. And then finally, half step brings us back to D. So it's D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And that is the D major scale. And you can use this principle with any scale. You can construct any major scale with this. You can start from A, you can start from F, you can start from E, and you'll just construct it, basically. So the basic scales that you want to learn are major and the minor scale. And I'll use a term that's a little bit more beginner friendly, although it's not quite the most accurate way of describing it. But just for the sake of this video, I'll explain it in this way. Major sounds happy, and minor generally sounds dark or sad. Again, it's not the most accurate way or the most representative way to explain what like the mood that these scales kind of invoke, but there it is. In real truth, scales kind of fall on a spectrum, and there are more scales other than major and minor. They all fall on a spectrum of what we call light and dark, where, for example, Lydian is the lightest, Locrian is the darkest, and so Lydian and Locrian are just examples of other scales, and again, it's just different intervals between them. However, they're way too advanced for this video, so I'm not going to be talking anything about them other than just name dropping them and just name dropping a few of those other scales. So like I said, those are other scales, also known as modes, but again, way too advanced. So the example I gave was Mixolydian. I also name dropped Lydian and Locrian. There's a few more other than that, but let's not get into it this video because I don't want to, overwhelm you with too much information right now. Key signatures. What are they? So key signature just tells you what note the scale starts from. So it informs you on the number of sharps and flats within the key. So if you see in the picture here, so C major is gonna start from C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps, no flats. So one sharp, a key with one sharp is gonna be G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And so that's going to be the G major scale. And so you can basically take a picture of this if you want to. And these are the names of the keys. So like I said, G major also can be known as E minor. So you can start from E and use the minor scale, and it will have the exact same sharps and flats as a G major, right? So it just informs you on the amount of sharps and flats are within the key. Every note in a Western musical scale has an appropriate key signature tied to it. So like I said, we have C, D, E, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Like all of those have a major scale associated with them. We also have all the sharps and all the flats. We have the keys we have the accidentals associated with keys as well. And so every note in a Western musical scale has a key signature. So all these keys are going to be related to each other through a concept known as the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths to some, although it's much more common to hear it as the circle of fifths. We'll go into the circle of fifths a little bit later in this video. However, just know that it's also known as the circle of fourths as well. Okay, so someone asks you what key a piece of music is in. The best way to respond is the name, where it starts from. So let's say G major, right? So let's say if you wrote something C major, someone asks, oh, what's the key of your piece? You write C major. Or if you want to, sometimes this is in classical thing, you write, let's say, sonata in D, full stop, and it just ends there. That just means major. If there's nothing behind it, we just automatically assumed it means major. If it's minor, it will always say minor on it. It won't be, sonata in D, and it's actually in D minor, not D major. It will be in D major. So yeah. So if you see like a piece of music written by any of the classical composers, and it says sonata or something in a certain key, and there's nothing behind it, or like C, G, D, A, B flat, you automatically assume it's major. Okay. Let me take a drink here. As you know, most of these The other video is also recorded as a oneer, so I'm gonna keep it that way, and I'm just gonna rant. Chords and harmony. So let's use what we've learned with notes, scales, keys, right, to begin to explore harmony in the form of chords. So what are chords? Chords are a combination of notes that are played together and generally have a certain sound to them, right? The most basic type of chord is called a triad, which consists of 3 notes, right? And so these are, in this picture, you can see the different types of chords that you have. But for our purposes, let's not go past the third one. Let's just talk about major and minor chords for now. I'll talk about a little bit about diminished later, but let's just talk about major and minor for now. So this is why I said to take a picture of that interval chart. This is when it will become useful, because now when we're constructing chords, I'll be referencing interval names. So we're going to talk about the major and minor chords. So a major chord consists of the root note. So that just says, for example, what note. It's like kind of like a key, what note the chord starts in. So you can have a C major chord, a D major chord, an E major chord, F sharp major chord. So the root is, let's say, all our examples are going to be in C, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. Highly recommend, again, if you're in front of a piano or you have an instrument, play it, right? Figure out these notes on your instrument and play these notes, because it will. I find that playing the instrument or doing something with it, or if you're on the DAW, lay these notes out. Have like a piano VST or something, lay these notes out, and it will help you learn better. So the major chord consists of the root note, and because all our examples are going to be in C, the root note is C. That's our base, our the foundation chord. The chord's namesake, C. Okay, so put down the C, play C. Okay, we're gonna add a major third to it. So the major third of C is gonna be E. Okay, so play an E. So let's play C and E together. Bang. All right. And the next one, we're gonna use the perfect fifth. So the perfect fifth of a C is going to be a G, right? So let's play these together. C. So I want you, if you're playing on a guitar, just strum it. If you're playing on a piano, you can be a bit more flexible with this. So play C, then an E, then a G, and hit all of them at the same time. And that's a major chord. You have just created a major chord. And if you don't have an instrument in front of you, or you don't have a DAW, I look like an idiot, but that's a major chord. So a minor chord is pretty simple to create as well. It consists of the root. So let's start with C again. We also have the perfect fifth on there, so keep your hand on that G. That G is still there. However, instead of the major third, we're going to go with the minor third. So again, if you want to look back at the intervals, what's the difference between major third and minor third? Well, the minor third is a half step below the major third. So take your middle finger, or wherever there's an E, and change it to an E flat. In a guitar, you're gonna have to figure this out a little bit more smartly. Hopefully, you got that figured out. On a piano, like I said, just take your thumb is gonna be on C, pinky is gonna be on G. Your middle finger was on E. Move that to the E flat or the D sharp and hit it. Congratulations, that is a minor chord. In a DAW, extra simple. You take your E and you just drag it down to E flat and just play it. Minor chord. Simple. All right, now you know how to create a major and a minor chord, so we can move on. Inversions. What are inversions? Well, inversions are just a different way of playing the same chords, right? It's an alternative way of playing the chord, or what we call voicing a chord. So it usually consists of having the third, the major or minor third, depending on the chord, or the perfect fifth of the chord as the bass/lowest note. How do we experiment with this? Let's just do this. If you're on a guitar, I have no idea how to start doing inversions. I'm not that skilled of a guitar player quite yet. On a piano, it's a little bit easier to explain. So, let's take our fingers are still on C, E, G. Okay. I want you to now put your thumb on E. Put your middle finger on G and stretch that pinky all the way up to C and play that. So E, G, C, play that chord. Congratulations, you have played a C chord in what's called first inversion. So what's that mean? Okay, so let's break down the C chord, right? So we have the C, the root note, a third above that, which is an E, and a third above, so the major third, the E, and the perfect fifth, the G, right? Okay, so what we did is we just took this C, we moved it up to the top. So now it's E, G, and C. Still the same notes, just different arrangement. Whereas C was the lowest note below, now it's at the top. And so it's still gonna have the same notes, it's still gonna sound similar, but there's a different kind of somewhat quality to the chord. Just because of the intervals. Because originally the C and the E is a major third part, right? However, we moved that C up, so now it's just, so the intervals between each note are different, and that's what gives it a more interesting sound. Okay, and so let's try a second inversion this time. So that was called first inversion. If the third is at the base, it's called first inversion. The next type of inversion that we're supposed to learn is second inversion. All we do is, again, really simple. So now we have an E, G, and C. Let's take this E, let's move this up to the top. So put your thumb on G, put your middle finger on C, put your pinky on E, and hit that chord. That is a C chord in second inversion because the perfect fifth of the original chord is now at the lowest note. So why do we use these? What's the point of me teaching you this? Well, we use this to make chord changes seem less drastic and more fluid. What do I mean by this? If we're doing, let's say, I want to do an A to an F, right? Like an A minor chord to an F major chord. Well, an A minor chord is A, C, E, right? An F major chord is F, A, C. Okay. So if we're playing it normally on a keyboard, we're going to be hitting the A minor chord, and we're just going to be shifting our triad F major. That's a little bit of a jump. Can we make it a little bit more smooth? Of course we can. So A, C, E, right? Bang, A minor. Let's just take our pinky, and instead of having to like move our entire hand to start with, so our thumb starts with F, all we can do is keep that A minor position. So A, C, and instead of this being E, we just shift it up slightly to hit the F. Bang, F major. We have now played F major in first inversion. From A minor to F, but it sounds incredibly smooth, incredibly, it just sounds really, really fluid. And that's the purpose of these inversions. So play it. Try. A, C, E, F, A, C. So hit A 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. F major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now try it with first inversion, where you just go 1, 2, 3, 4 with the A, C, E, and then shift your pinky from the E to the F. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just sounds incredibly smooth. It sounds incredibly smooth, incredibly buttery. And that's what inversions are all about. Okay. So now we know why we use inversions and what inversions are. Chords in a key. This is very crucial. I would recommend screenshot this page. Any way you can, screenshot this, write it down, anything, pause the video, do anything that you can to get this down. This is going to be important because a lot of videos are going to talk about these Roman numeral symbols, and I'm pretty sure if you watch any musical analysis, these have popped up. And if you don't understand them, I'll try to explain this to you the way I understand it. So what are chords in the key? So within a key are chords, right? So within a key signature, like I said, this is why it's related. A key signature, let's say C major, there are a series of chords within it. And in D major, they'll be different. E major, they'll be different, right? It's very formulaic how you form these chords. And there's an obvious way to do it. So let's talk about it. Within each chord, within a key will be represented by a Roman numeral number. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on there, right? Okay. Each number corresponds to the note in the scale. 1 is the first note, C. 2, the second note, D. 3, the third note, E. 4, F. 5, G. 6, A. 7 is B. And going back to 1, C. Right? Like I said, our example is going to be C. You can do this with any. So for example, here on the screen right now, you have D. So D is the first note, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. And that's going to be the way you write it. Okay, so now you know. Okay, each number corresponds to the note in the key. So the first, number 1 corresponds to the first, second to the second, 3 to the third. Really simple. Got it? Cool. Now, this is how you read this. If the number is capitalized, the Roman numeral, because it's letters, right? If the letters are capitalized, that's a major chord. How can we tell? So for example, here, the 1, the 4, and the 5 are capitalized. Therefore, it's major. It's going to be a major chord. If it's in a lowercase, like the 2, 3, and 6, the 7 we'll get to in a bit. That's going to be a minor chord. If that's a tiny circle next to it, it's going to be diminished, a diminished chord. So all you do for a diminished chord, really simple. You take your root, you take the root note, a minor third, and instead of that perfect fifth, you go with a flat 5. You take that fifth half step down, and that's a diminished chord. So that's a quick way of explaining it. So the easiest way, B, D, and F, that's a diminished chord. It's pretty simple. If you move the F to an F sharp and play it there, that's B minor. But B, D, and F is just F as B diminished. If you want to try it out on a keyboard. That's a pretty easy example for you. So, through this, it becomes really easy to know now. So now chord progressions are always written in these Roman numeral systems. And through this table, we can easily distinguish what chords are in a progression. Why? Let's do this. So let's talk about chord progressions. A series of chords that relate to each other. That's what a chord progression is, right? There are many different types of chord progressions, almost an endless variety of them. Popular chord progressions will use the 1, the major 1, the major 4, major 5, and the minor 6 chords in a major key. The minor 1, flat 7, flat 6, and major 3 chords in a minor key as well are popular chords in a minor key. So, let's talk about how to read these numbers. Okay, let's say we have a song. Let's say you go up to me. You ask me, I really love your piece. What key is it in? What chord progression did you use? Let's say I tell you, thank you for your interest in my piece of music. The key is in C. And because I didn't say anything next to and let's say the chord progression, yeah, I used a 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression. Okay, let's break this down. I said that the key was in C. I didn't say anything behind it. So you were like, oh no, is it C major or C minor? Going back to what I said earlier in the video, if there's nothing behind it, if it's just say something in C, it's automatically assumed to be major. So now we know, okay, he's talking about C major. Got it. So what's his chord progression? 1, 5, 6, 4. Okay. So we know in a major chord progression that the 1 chord is major. So we know the first chord is going to be C major. Bang, C. Okay, we know the first chord. The second one, so it's 1, 5, 6, 4. Second one is the 5. In the major key, the 5 is going to be also, it's going to be also major. Okay. So what's the 5? What's the 5 chord going to be then? It's a major chord. We know it's going to be a major chord. C, D, E, F, G. G major. So we know the chord progression. C major to G major. Okay. Let's do. So what did I say again? 1, 5, 6, 4. 6. We know in a major key, 6 is going to be minor. Okay. So 6. So we know it's going to be a minor chord. It has to be a minor chord. What note is it? So C, D, E, F, G, A. 6, A minor. Okay. So now we know the chord progression goes from C major to G major to A minor. Okay. 1, 5, 6, 4. Last one. Let's just decode this. 4 in a major key is always going to be capitalized or major. Okay, it's going to be a major chord. We know it's going to be a major chord. C, D, E, F. F major. And just from that piece of information that I said, oh, my piece is in the key of C. The chord progression is 1, 5, 6, 4. We have decoded the exact chord progression. It is a C major to a G major to an A minor to an F major. That is how you use these Roman numeral systems. A lot of these kind of channels that teach music are going to use these numbers. Please learn these. Learn these for every key, and learn these for different keys as well. You can just search up chords in a minor scale or chords in a major scale, and you'll see these numbers pop up. So like I said, the 1 flat, so major 1, minor 2, minor 3, major 4, major 5, minor 6, diminished 7, that's just going to be in a major chord. However, these are going to be different if we're talking about a minor scale, we're talking about a Mixolydian mode or whatever, right? So I highly suggest that you look this up for minor. However, just note that you can perfectly write something in minor just looking at this. You can just use the A minor as the home chord and then just improvise with F, G, and C on top of that. So yeah, in a minor, like I said, the most popular chords are the 1, the flat 7 chord, which is, like I said, just take the 7th note of the scale and then just flatten it. Just move down a half step, move the root down a half step, and then make it a major chord. That's the flat 7 chord. The flat 6 chord, again, count from A up to 6 in the scale, flatten it immediately, and then play it. There you go. And the 3 chord, the major 3 chord, so 3 away from the 3rd note in the scale. Okay. So again, the popular example of chord progression, 1, 5, 6, 4, used in a lot of pop songs. And so if you search up how to play 40 pop songs with the same 4 chords, you kind of know why. Again, not to bash on pop and say it's simple or anything, but there's a reason that this is popular, right? There's a reason that these chords are popular. It just sounds good. It just sounds good. And as composers, we can't shy away from 1, 5, 6, 4. Like, there might be a little bit of an elitist bias to think, oh, but that's just basic. However, I think we should learn to use them. You know, like I said, whatever fits the music, right? We just write to serve the music. So if the music calls for 1, 5, 6, 4, why not use it, right? So yeah, now we know how the Roman numeral system works in chord progressions. We know how to take a Roman numeral chord progression and break it down to a proper letter chords. So you're well on your way to being able to write music. Circle of fifths. We're here. All right. This is a major concept. So the circle of fifths is just a way that we can visualize the 12th major or the minor keys, right? It's just a way that we can find out how they're related to one another. Really simple. It also teaches you how many sharps or flats as you go down each side. For example, so C is no sharp or no flat, and that's why it's perfectly on top. It's right in the middle. It's neutral. To anything clockwise, so going this way, I'm pretty sure it's going this way for you. Whatever. You know clockwise. Hopefully you know clockwise, or going right in the photo. You're gonna start adding sharps. So C, the next one's gonna have 1 sharp, then 2 sharps, then 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5 sharps, 6 sharps, and then eventually 7. Although you don't really need it. 7 sharps is equivalent to 5 flats. So yeah. And if you go this way, or you go to the left, anti-clockwise, then you start adding flats instead. So from C to F, you add 1 flat. F to B flat, you add 2 flats. So you add another flat, then you add another flat, all the way up to 6 flats. And in music theory school, if you're doing any sort of classical training on music theory, like I have a little bit, they're going to force you to memorize this. And it's really useful that you do memorize this. So like set C and A minor, C major / A minor is the midpoint. And does not have any sharps or flats and serves as the midpoint of the circle. So again, There are many uses of this. It comes all down to modulation. How you modulate to a different key. Definitely, you want to have some knowledge of the circle of fifths in order to make your modulations a little bit smoother and a little bit better. However, it's a great concept to just learn and to just at least memorize what the circle of fifths are. And I would recommend actually memorizing just the major keys. The minor keys, there is a formula to dissect them. It's, I believe, 3 half steps down. It's gonna, yeah, just count 3 half steps down from the major key, and that's the minor. So from C, so let's count 3 half steps down. B, B flat, A. So A minor. So G, we can do the same. G, right? So G is our first. F sharp, F, E. Okay, E minor. And that's how you count it. Just 3 half steps down. And that's the what's called the relative minor, which means it's a minor key with the same amount of sharps and flat as the major key that it's associated with. So for our purposes, we don't have to memorize the minor because we can just calculate the minor really easily. We just have to memorize the major. So C is the midpoint, and we just need to know how to go around each side. The way I personally do it, there are acronyms, acronyms on many acronyms that you can possibly do. I don't bother with them. I use a more crude, I guess, form of memorizing. The way I do it is this. For the sharps, I memorize good day. So kind of like British, right? Like good day to use that. So you think good day is what A stands for? No. It doesn't stand for anything. So literally, good day. So I do G, and I just pronounce D-A-E-B as a word. So good day, F. So G'daybuff is the way I do it. It's very crude. It just comes from good day, and it just literally I just memorize a G'daybuff, and that's all the sharps. For me, it's very crude. I don't know if it works for you. You might learn better with an acronym. I don't memorize the acronyms, unfortunately. I don't know. The other way, again, very, very literal for me. I memorize it as F beat G. F beat, because B-E-A-D happens to spell a beat. G. That works. F beat G. So G'daybuff, F beat G on the other way. That's the way I do it. You find your own system. Definitely, I was taught to it using acronyms, and then I memorize it as G'dayb. So use whatever fits you. All right, we're getting close to the end now. Let's talk about melodies. Let's just some basic theory ideas to construct a melody. I know melodies can be a little bit more free. Like you might think, oh well, I'll just sing something and that'll be the melody. Yes, true, very true. But let's try to structure our melodies a little bit just to make the melodies more catchy and a little bit more memorable, right? Let's talk about this. Chord tones and not chord tones. What are they? So chord tone are just any notes found within the chords. Very simple. In a C major chord, so it's C, E, and G. So if your melody includes, so while the harmony is a C major chord, the melody over it, if your melody has C, E, and G, then the C, E, and G are called chord tones. It will naturally sound good because the harmony already has those notes, and it will just add to the harmony, basically. You can also use the melody to add extensions to the chords, such as the 7th, 9th, and 11th. It's a little bit more of an advanced concept. Don't worry about it too much. I definitely didn't really care too much about chord tones and non-chord tones too much, but non-chord tones are tones from outside the chord. You can use them as passing notes. So for example, if you want to like have a jump from E to C, you can put a D in between and it will make the fall, like for example, E, D, C, something like that, right? To like make the fall a little bit more smooth and a little bit more interesting. They're called passing tones, passing notes. And yeah, they're just literally just not, typically they're non-chord tones found outside the key and just used to link to an interval together just to make it a little bit smoother. Okay? Pretty simple. Motifs. This is probably the most important thing from melody writing. So a motif is just a musical idea. and is a building block of most modern film and video game music. Trust me on this. Motifs are strong. On the right here, I have a little bit of an excerpt. I know it might not be suitable if you're not into classical music, but trust me, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard. So this is Allegro from Symphony Number 5. What is this? Well, if you just look at it, you might not instantly recognize it unless you can read notation really well or you're a classical musician. However, it is the bum 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 bum, one of the most famous classical intros to a symphony ever. Bum 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 bum. That is a motif. Bum 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 bum. That's a motif, right? What? Because it is an idea that gets developed during this first movement. How? How is it? Okay, so the symphony goes bum 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 bum. Right? So I'm not exactly a singer, so but you kind of get it. You kind of get how it kind of gets developed. Like this bum 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 idea always just gets used, even though it's just a little bit faster, right? And maybe the bum 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 isn't as held, where it's like da 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 da, right? So it's an idea that you can it's the idea of a piece. So again, motifs are building blocks to most video game and film music, as motifs have a certain name within these types of music. It's called a leitmotif, and which a leitmotif is just a motif that's associated with a particular character, place, or event. A great example of a leitmotif is the Force theme from Star Wars. Bum 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 ba-da-dum bum ba-dum ba-dum bum ba-dum bum bum. Right? Every time there's like Jedi or Force or reflection happening in the story, that just somehow always comes on. That's an example of a leitmotif, right? It's a motif. Bum 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 ba bum 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 bum. That's associated with something. In this case, the Jedi, the light side, right? So in video game and film music, you can definitely use motifs and leitmotifs to form kind of interesting thematic ideas. So for example, you might have a leitmotif for each character, a leitmotif for a place, a leitmotif for a certain kind of villain, right? For example, like Darth Vader, bom, 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 bom. Anytime you hear that, oh no, the Sith has to be somewhere there. Even if we're like having a scene, right, where we look at just the Jedi, it's just maybe a shot of just Luke, Han Solo, or whatever, but we hear bom, 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 bom. We know, oh no, there must be like Sith or the kind of like Empire somewhere nearby. And that's the power of leitmotifs, is they can convey ideas that we don't even have to see in a game. So for example, if you give, let's say, an enemy in a video game a certain kind of like leitmotif, let's say do 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 do, every time you hear that, then you're gonna be like, oh no, something's nearby, even though you don't necessarily see it. And that's the power that a motif can have. And so, as I said, motif is a musical idea that you'll have to develop into more interest, into like a more, so like that bum 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 bum, right? So it's like they changed it, and we'll discuss one way of how you can develop your idea in the next slide. Other than that, it's just through trial and experimentation. You want to learn how to develop these ideas, and there are plenty of other videos. Search up how to develop a musical motif, and you'll find a lot of videos on this exact topic. However, I'll give you one way we can do that. And this one way is called variation. Variation describes a musical passage or a phrase derived from a motif, but which has been modified some way. Variation can be expressed in many different ways, including change in rhythm, tempo, instrumentation, or even adding more passing notes in between the notes from the motif. So variation is a way to make the melodies less repetitive, but still memorable. So the example I have for you on screen right now is Paganini's Caprice 24. If you never really listened to classical music, or you have no huge idea of classical music, you might not have heard of this, but it's really famous in the classical world. bum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum bum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 dum bum dun na 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 right? And it's one of the famous difficult violin pieces. Well, that's the main theme. So let's take that as the motif. How does Paganini develop or change this idea? Well, the second one, it goes right. So he's making the violinist do ricochets and using different musical techniques, right? And he's adding a little bit more notes in between. But you can hear, if you hear the main melody and you hear the repetition, the variation next to each other, you'll see the same common theme. You'll still hear the main motif in there. It's just been kind of spiced up with extra, with different techniques, different violin techniques, and through the addition of more passing notes, right? But the motif is still there. You can still clearly hear it. And so that's what good repetition, good variation is. It's the motivic idea. You can still hear it clearly. However, it's been changed in some way that makes it a lot more interesting to listen to and to play. And that's just one way that you can change up or develop your motivic idea. Okay? And like I said, use it to make it less repetitive, but still very memorable. All right. It's been 50 minutes. Jeez Louise. This video is longer than I intended to. But I hope that in my 50 minutes of talking, which should be shorter than a university class, that you guys get an idea of the basics of music theory, and you have an idea of how to kind of use this to start composing. Like I said, go back through this video at any point, try to find the slide that you're stuck with if you don't get anything, and once you start not getting anything, you can search up on your own, see if you can understand it as well. So yeah, final thing I'll say to you guys, thank you so much for watching this. There's going to be plenty more videos in this series once I get around to doing them. So hit subscribe if you want to kind of be informed of when these come out. Because like I said, I don't really have a particular schedule for them. I kind of fit them around my current schedule. So whenever I have free time and I can work on these, I'll work on it, upload it. So hitting subscribe, clicking the bell icon definitely tells you when these are going to come out. So you'll be first to kind of hear about the series when the new episode comes out. Last thing I'll say to you, get out there, start composing. Just do it. You'll learn more. Just do it. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.